Kunjabihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Vrajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Vrajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabihari Jai Mr. Paramahansa Parujikacharya Ashtotartha Sri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parujikacharya Ashtotartha Sri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnavan Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Kantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai Samaveta Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Narayanam Namaskritya Narang Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jai Mudiriyet. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, you should offer our respectful obeisances unto Lord Narayan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, unto Narayan Rishi, the supremest human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author, and unto Srila Prabhupada, the translator, commentator, and our spiritual master. Nashta prayesha bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatyuttama Shloke Bhakti Bhavati Naishtaki. By regular attendance in classes on Srimad Bhagavatam and by rendering devotional service to the pure devotee, all that is inauspicious within the heart is destroyed almost to nil. And loving devotion to the Supreme Lord who is glorified in transcendental songs is established as an irrevocable fact. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Maybe I should start with this. Hare Krishna. On this 4th day of November 2017 in SanDiego, a reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Canto 3, The Status Quo, Chapter 27, Understanding Material Nature. Text number 7. Sarvabhuta Samatvena Nirvairena Prasangataha Brahmacharyena Maunena Swadharmena Baliyasa Sarvabhuta Samatvena Nirvairena Prasangataha Brahmacharyena Maunena Swadharmena Baliyasa Sarvabhuta Samatvena Nirvairena Prasangataha Brahmacharyena Maunena Swadharmena Baliyasa. Sarvabhuta Samatvena Nirvairena Prasangataha Brahmacharyena Maunena Swadharmena Baliyasa. Swadharmena Baliyasa. Sarvabhuta Samatvena Nirvairena Prasangataha Brahmacharyena Maunena Dharmena Baliyasa. Ladies? Sarvabhuta Samatvena Nirvairena Prasangataha Brahmacharyena Maunena Swadharmena Baliyasa. Sarva, all Bhuta, living entities. Samatvena, by seeing equally. Nirvairena, without enmity. Aprasangataha, without intimate connections. Brahmacharyena, by celibacy. Maunena, by silence. Swadharmena, by one's occupation. Baliyasa, by offering the result. Translation. In executing devotional service, one has to see every living entity equally, without enmity towards anyone, yet without intimate connections with anyone. One has to observe celibacy, be grave, and execute his eternal activities, offering the results to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Please repeat. In executing devotional service, one has to see every living entity equally, without enmity towards anyone, yet without intimate connections with anyone. One has to observe celibacy, be grave, and execute his eternal activities, offering the results to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Purport. A devotee of the Supreme Personality of Godhead who seriously engages in devotional service is equal to all living entities. There are various species of living entities, but a devotee does not see the outward covering. He sees the inner soul inhabiting the body. Because each and every soul is part and parcel of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he does not see any difference. That is the vision of a learned devotee. As explained in the Bhagavad Gita, a devotee or a learned sage does not see any difference between a learned Brahman, a dog, an elephant, or a cow, because he knows that the body is the outer covering only, and that the soul is actually part and parcel of the Supreme Lord. A devotee has no enmity towards any living entity, but that does not mean that he mixes with everyone. That is prohibited. Apasangataha means not to be in intimate touch with everyone or anyone. A devotee is concerned with his execution.
Is it everyone?
It should be anyone. It will be anyone eventually. Yeah, that's what it says in the translation. A devotee is concerned with his execution of devotional service, and he should therefore mix with devotees only in order to advance his objective. He has no business mixing with others, for although he does not see anyone as his enemy, his dealings are only with persons who engage in devotional service. A devotee should observe the vow of celibacy. Celibacy does not necessitate that one be absolutely free from sex life. Satisfaction with one's wife is permitted also under the vow of celibacy. The best policy is to avoid sex life altogether. That is preferable. Otherwise, a devotee can get married under religious principles and live peacefully with a wife. A devotee should not speak needlessly. A serious devotee has no time to speak of nonsense. He is always busy in Krishna consciousness. Whenever he speaks about Krishna. Mauna means silence. Silence does not mean that one should not speak at all, but that he should not speak of nonsense. He should be very enthusiastic in speaking about Krishna. Another important item described here is swadharmena, of being exclusively occupied in one's eternal occupation, which is to act as the eternal servitor of the Lord, or to act in Krishna consciousness. The next word, baliyasa, means offering the results of all activities to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. A devotee does not act on his personal account for sense gratification. Whatever he earns, whatever he eats, and whatever he does, he offers for the satisfaction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Om Jnana Timarandasya Jnanandana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmilatam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. So this verse, quite naturally, follows from the previous verse, in which Lord Kapila says, one has to become faithful by practicing the controlling process of the yoga system and must elevate himself to the platform of unalloyed devotional service by chanting and hearing about me. So now in this verse and future verses, he's describing the process of devotional service in this context. And there's some very important instruction in this verse. So first of all, Sarva Buddha Samatvena, Nirvairena Prasangata. The first two lines have to do with his relations with others. To see all equally. This is a repeated theme in the Bhagavad Gita. Especially we find that 5th chapter, Prabhupada quotes the verse, he doesn't quote the Sanskrit. Vidya vinaya sampane brahmane gabihastani shuni chaiva shapake che pandita samadarshana. An actual learned soul, a devotee, he sees the learned and gentle Brahman, Vidya vinaya sampane brahmane, the cow, the elephant, the dog, and the dog eater, all on the same level. Now, it doesn't mean that he deals with them equally. He deals with them according to their nature, according to a particular body. But he sees them equally in that he sees the spirit soul within. And therefore he has no enmity, and he has no special affection also. This comes up in the 2nd chapter, where he says, where Krishna says, Yat savitrana bisnehas tatat prapishabhashavam. Anabhisneha means not any material affection, because as soon as you have affection for one, that means you have enmity for another. There's a duality there. These are my friends, these are my enemies. All that duality, the devotee is seeing equally because he's seeing the soul, he's seeing the spirit within, and the super soul. So that's a very important point. And therefore he says, nirvaira, without enmity. You may remember this is a quality of the sadhus. Tatikshava, kararika, Suridaksarbadehida, Ajata Shatrava. Ajata Shatra means his enemy is never born. It means the same thing. No enmity toward anyone. Others may regard him as an enemy. Perfect example is Prahlad Maharaj and his father. Prahlad never regarded his father as an enemy. The proof is that after the whole thing was over, he begged for Nrsingadev to forgive him for all that he'd done and deliver him. So, which is an amazing thing. It's the perfection of what you read about. Jesus Christ. Forgive them, Father. They know not what they're doing. To be able to forgive one's so-called enemies, those who are showing enmity to you, is a real advanced platform. Because it's almost a visceral thing. As soon as someone shows anger towards you or attacks you, immediately you want to attack them and feel anger toward them. But if you feel it's equipoise, that's a sign of great advancement. So this is what we have to try to culture, that not bearing enmity toward others, and aprasangataha. Now here again we get that word prasanga. This is kind of a theme in Kapila Dev's teachings. The third, fourth time we've seen it. So again, sangha means association, and it means attachment. Prasanga means intense, means really intense attachment and meaningful association. Satam prasangam mama virya samvido. This is a verse in the 25th chapter, famous verse. It says, associating with my sadhus, with sadhus, my devotees, the satam, meaningfully, not just coming into the proximity, but actually hearing from the great souls with great rapt attention. That's real prasanga. That means that you're really benefiting from the association. So on the other side, he said, aprasanga, don't have any intense association with ordinary people. This is a basic principle of devotional service. Atsatsanga tyaga he vaishnavahachara. This was Lord Chaitanya's answer when he was asked, what is the quality of a devotee? This is the first quality he gives. Asatsanga he vaishnavahachara. To give up association with the non-devotees. So that's a very important point, aprasangataha. And then he talks about more or less different tack. And what is one doing in one's own life? Brahmacharyena maunena. Now this brahmachari is, of course, he's a brahmachari, he's a household. But brahmacharya is meant as a basic principle for devotional life, meaning self-restraint. It's practically a revolutionary concept. It really is in this present day society. That's kind of given now. I can see from those of us who go back a ways just how the general society in America has degraded so much. There actually, believe it or not, there used to be censors. You couldn't just put anything up on the screen. What to speak of television that goes into people's homes? Children? There was some idea that there has to be some protection against that. But you can see the importance of it. This energy, this sense gratification energy, the lust, say, is just prema that's been, contaminated, if you will, turned by the modes of nature, because we turned away from Krishna, and so that inherent quality of love, prema, is now directed toward the material energy. It's described in the 4th chapter of the Adi Leela, Ladani Shakti, which is ultimately Radharani personified as Ladani Shakti. She's Ladani personified. So that's loving energy meant to be directed toward Krishna, pleasure energy. Palada Lada Dayine. Right? He's Lord Nrsingadev gives bliss to Prahlad. That's what that means. Palada Lada. And so it's described there in the CC. He quotes a verse, I forget from which Shastra, that this Ladani Shakti, we all have that inherent in us. And when it's directed toward Krishna, to pleasing him, we feel the transcendental pleasure. When we turn from Krishna, then that's the essence of sense gratification, the desire for sense gratification. And it becomes a source of misery and pain. Hare Krishna. So that same Ladani Shakti becomes lust. And it has to be, I love this word, sublimated. Means turned again toward Krishna and made pure. In the 3rd chapter at the end there, that little section on the enemy of the living being lust, Prabhupada says once that prema becomes kama, it's very difficult to change it back. But it is possible. It is possible by the process of devotional service. So naturally, that sex energy has to be controlled as far as possible. It's not forbidden. Prabhupada, I heard a lecture, Prabhupada talks about one of the contrasts between the impersonalists and the devotees, the Mayavadis. It's like you can't even become a Mayavadi unless you're a sannyasi, basically. In other words, there's no scope for it, because just like there's no scope for opulent prasadam. That's Maya, right? If they think everything is Maya, the form of God is Maya, the name of God is Maya, the prasadam is Maya, then you're just fallen. That's why, in his famous conversation between Prakashananda Saraswati and Lord Chaitanya, he said, "What are you doing? Dancing around like this? This is Maya. You're a sannyasi. You were initiated into our sampradaya. You should be studying Vedanta." It didn't compute until later he was converted that these very things can be used in Krishna's service. A sex life can also be used. Dharma varuddha bhuteshu kama smibharatarshava. Krishna says right in the 7th chapter that I am that sex life which is not against religious principles. The religious principles means restraint for having children with the marriage, fine. Krishna says that's great. And Lord Chaitanya famously for his devotee Shivananda Same, when his wife was pregnant, he gave the name to the child became Kavi Karnapur, very auspicious. So, but for those in the brahmacharya ashram, sannyasa ashram is very strict, no sex life at all. And it helps, as Prabhupada says in this purport, best if it can be given up, but the best policy to avoid, that is preferable. Otherwise, the devotee can get married in the religious principle and live peacefully with wife, And even that, at a certain point, there should be separation. So you can't get around this. It's like you can't soft soap or soft pedal this ultimately for the masses here. It's just the way it is, And there are going to be many people who are attracted to Krishna on a certain level, but this is going to be a mountain that's too high to climb. They can't accept it. But if you really want to advance and taste, the real advanced platform of devotional service, then this is an essential aspect of it. It's not something that can be fudged. And then the silence part, maunena. So, what's part of not associating with materialists is not hearing nonsense and speaking nonsense. Maunena means speaking. From that comes the word muni, because they generally keep silent. But as Prabhupada makes it clear here and in other places, silence doesn't mean actually being silent. It means being silent for speaking nonsense. The devotees, all they want to do is speak about Krishna, right? Srila Prabhupada, he was I don't want to say obsessed. He was extremely eager to speak about Krishna and write about Krishna. This is another aspect that Prabhupada has actually stressed for his students. When it first started, the BTG was the outlet. He said everyone should write something, write your realizations, this is one of the reasons why there's so many books, and there always will from devotees, because writing is fantastic meditation. You're writing about Krishna, and you're hoping it'll be published and others will benefit, and so it's the big mridanga. So that's but being silent for material things. What does it say? Prajalpo niyamagraha. This is one of the 6 things that impedes devotional service. Atyahara priyasascha prajalpo niyamagraha janasangasthalalyamcha shadvi bhakti panashchiti. So they're not mutually exclusive. If you associate with non-devotees, janasanga, jana here means ordinary people, then you're going to engage in prajalpa. It's the way it is. And when I joined, and Rajendranand, when I joined, the temple was kind of an oasis. In other words, there wasn't all of this stuff coming in through the computer and the phones and everything like that. I didn't even read a newspaper for 2 years, And one said, well, you were cut off. What did I really miss? I knew that the oil embargo was going on. This is 1973, because we could hardly fill our vans to go out on Sankirtan. That much I heard. But now that I missed those 2 years of news, what did I really miss? Not much. I survived. Huh? Anxiety. Yeah, I missed that, the anxiety, worrying about it. It's more difficult today. In other words, because there's so many ways in which Maya can creep in, even in an ashram, you know. But it's still a principle. It's an unbreakable principle to control what's coming into your ears and what's going out of your mouth. You know, in terms of speaking and hearing, that's practically everything. Hearing and chanting. So therefore, Maunam is a principle to really be able to keep silence when there's no scope for speaking about Krishna. You know. And because after all, you know, all of that we are doing here is meant to culminate in constant remembrance of Krishna. And so the mind is now filled with so many impressions, not Krishna. We're trying to discipline so that we're more and more concentrating on Krishna. And speaking and hearing are the two ways, one of the two main ways in which thoughts come into the mind and thoughts are expressed. And if they're not Krishna-conscious thoughts and Krishna-conscious subjects, then that will be a break in our meditation. All of this kind of emanates, or you know, is following Kapila Dev's expression about yoga. In other words, there's a meditative aspect to this. If you recall back in, oh boy, now I've done it, this stupid thing. Sorry. He started with one has to become faithful by controlling the process of the yoga system. This is in the text number 6, the last verse. So he's starting with yoga, but then he says, I must elevate himself to the platform of unalloyed devotional service by chanting and hearing about me. So it's very clear that the yoga is meant to culminate in bhakti. And as Prabhu makes it clear here, one can become faithful by practicing yoga. Now why is that? Faithful here means full of faith in the process. Because if you actually undergo the process of yoga and meditating on Krishna, one is going to experience something. He's going to experience some bliss, some peace. In other words, your faith will be nourished by your experience. Now, the same thing happens with hearing and chanting, and in addition to that, you're also associating with those who are chanting. In other words, by reading Srila Prabhupada's books, there's no doubt here. In other words, there's no words of speculation. It could be like this, could be like that. Prabhupada insists that constantly when he wrote the books and in his lectures and in his books, that I am simply presenting what's come before, what the Shastra says and what the previous acharyas say. And that's what they present also. So that surety comes through. And if we accept the knowledge, even tentatively, and we undergo and we begin the process of hearing and chanting and other process of devotional service, then we'll begin to experience some of the benefits and some of the realizations. Just the deity, we all see the deity differently according to our level of consciousness. I was, many years ago, I remember one devotee was having trouble in his Krishna consciousness. He was an experienced devotee, had been around for years, but something was going on in his life. I didn't know all the details. And I saw him, he was standing in front of Rukmini Dwarkadish when I lived in LA back in 76, 77. And maybe in 78 after Prabhupada disappeared. And he was standing there, he couldn't look at the deities. I saw him looking this way and that way and this way and that way. This is actually, to be able to look at the deities and be a devotee, in other words, as a devotee, you're actually standing there, Krishna's understanding me, my heart now, And to be able to look at the deities, pray to the deities, this is a great blessing. It's not easy to do that. And so, to see the deity, if you do some service, it doesn't matter what level you're on. You may be not initiated, but you're chanting. Say you're chanting regularly, and you're engaged in some service all day, some special service, some out of the ordinary, above and beyond. So maybe it's a festival coming. You're working on a cart or something, whatever. Like it happens all the time, right? And then it's happened to me. And then you come before the deity, and there's a I don't know what to say. The smile seems to be brighter. Krishna's kind of you. You can see the expression change. This is Krishna's given you some realization there. Your eyes have changed. Your vision has changed. It's a little more purified because you performed some austerity. Krishna is saying, I'm pleased with you, to some degree now. And that's, now multiply that. When that becomes more and more intense and pure and concentrated, that's affection for Krishna, bhava, love of Godhead. It's all very scientific. What the problem is that whatever state of mind we're in now, we think that that's me, and I see the whole reality, the whole world through that lens. Isn't that what you see with people who don't know anything about Krishna consciousness? When they see you on the street, if you're dressed as a devotee, they're not thinking, oh, here's a devotee. Most of them. All kinds of thoughts may come up. Well, are these guys still around, or whatever? In other words, they're putting you in some kind of box that they can understand. They try to understand, but it's completely false. It's completely false. This is why the first instruction here is to see everyone equally. You can only see that do that when you see him as the soul, but the default is to see the body. You're identifying yourself as a body, and everyone else is a body. That's the default. So right away, even if you understand and you're living the philosophy of a spiritual philosophy, you deal with living entities differently. Even just the trees and the insects. You understand that, and therefore your behavior changes, and that's a certain level of realization. Now there's a spirit soul. It's not just some bug that I could step on. There's a living entity there. Give him some prasadam, at least save him from being crushed in the temple room, whatever. So that quality in the devotee of seeing through what he understands from the Shastra, that's a certain level, a preliminary level of realization. And when one continues to practice, then you get some realization. Certainly the detachment from things which are troubling you, from attachments and also negative things. And that manifests oftentimes in a release of anxiety, release of fear. You can see it in devotees' faces. Most people, Prabhupada says, the face is the mirror of the mind. It shows, And so what's happening? Well, you're on, at least sometime during the day, you're experiencing, freedom from that anxiety. You're on a spiritual platform. So that should say, okay, so that means that the process works. I have that much realization, so that means your faith is increased. You can say with authority, yes, this process works. I've experienced it myself. You can say to some new person, no matter how long you've been in the movement. And that's how the movement grows, is that people speak to others and invite them, and they do it with a sense of affection and realization that the people feel. I'm not trying to exploit you. I'm not trying to bring you into some kind of a con game. I'm actually experiencing this. Why don't you come to the temple? And why don't you come to the lounge and have a kirtan? That was great on Thursday. I'm going to start coming again on Thursdays. There's people are obviously searching for something, and they're finding some of it, or some something in that lounge, in the kirtan, the music, the fellowship, the Krishna, an oasis from the madness out there, and that's actually what these temples are meant to be. It's what Krishna consciousness is meant to be. So these are some of the basic principles that we have to follow. Now, then he ends with this swadharmena baliyasana. Now, swadharma means different things in different contexts. Swadharma often means your activity according to your social position, which means modes of nature. And that's why Narada, at the beginning of the Bhagavatam, 5th chapter, 1st canto, is teaching to Vyas. He says, Tyaktva swadharman chadanam bhajanghare, right? Bhajan Napokva. So in that context, he says, one who gives up his material, activity according to the modes he's acquired, and takes full shelter of Krishna's lotus feet. Chaktva swadharman chadanam bhajanghare, and takes shelter of the lotus feet of Krishna, but due to one reason or another falls away. What did he lose? Nehabhikamanashosti. There's no loss or diminution. On the other hand, one who very nicely performs his social duties, material duties, but has no bhajan, what did he gain? He's still bound up completely in the material energy. But here Swadharma means something else. Prabhupada says by one's occupation, but he makes clear in the purport that Swadharma means your eternal activities. Another important item described here is Swadharmana, being exclusively occupied in one's eternal occupation, which is to act as the eternal servant of the Lord. In other words, to be in your devotional activities at all times. And whatever you do in those devotional activities, baliyasa. Bali means a gift. Just like we have King Bali, right? He was famous for giving the gift of everything, right? He didn't intend to do that, but he ended up giving that and finally himself. So baliyasa, offering the result of one's occupation, the result of one's service to Krishna. Prabhupada more or less references Yat Karoshi Yadashnasi in the purport without quoting the Sanskrit. So the idea is that ideally, every breath, this is meant to be an offering to Krishna. Everything we do. This verse in the 11th canto, Kayena vacha manasendriyava buddhyatmanava anusata svabhavat karoti yad sakalam padasmai narayanayeti samarpayetat. That this is kind of Yat Karoshi Yadashnasi expanded. Whatever you do with your body, with your words, with your mind, with your senses, with your intelligence, with yourself, with your conscience, whatever you have acquired due to your previous activity, we all have sets of those. You think, this is an offering to Narayan. This is an offering to Krishna. That means that every moment you're impelled to act. You're moving from one place to another, doing everything with all your senses. Both knowledge acquiring and active as an offering to Krishna. This is a service to Krishna. If you actually think like that, you have to be remembering Krishna at all times. This is what the great acharyas and devotees, their mentality is. You can see it in Prabhupada's activity. He didn't just pick up the phone. He's picked up the phone with consciousness. He's doing that for Krishna. That's full Krishna consciousness. So this is what he's recommending here. Swadharmena baliyasa. Whatever you do in your activities of devotional service, see this as a loving offering to Krishna. And that's the spiritual platform. So all of this is Kapila Dev giving us one of many instructions in the Bhagavatam, a list of things to do and not do that can constitute devotional service. And they've all been codified, just like it says, Nana Shastra Bhajadanaika Manosadharma Sangstabhata, that the six Goswamis scrutinizingly studied all the Shastras, especially Bhagavatam, and established eternal religious principles. In other words, systematically giving us, the nectar of instruction and the process, all the processes, delineated in the CC. It's all been distilled, and nectar of devotion, of course, so that these principles are all incorporated in our devotional life. And Srila Prabhupada, gave it for those who are, really serious to incorporate them in your life. Then, no matter what situation you are in, socially, you can add Krishna consciousness and practice, these principles and advance. So we've all been, given these gifts. And it's an ongoing process. This, I'm going to look up, the original transcript and see. It says without intimate connections with anyone, and then it says everyone in the purport. Well, maybe that was a mistyping or whatever, because he does not mean that he mixes with everyone. Well, no one mixes with everyone. How can you mix with everyone? But this mixing with anyone, I think is probably what Prabhupada meant to. Okay, I'll open it. Go ahead, Prabhu. Acha. Oh, okay. I tell you. Yes. Without intimate connection with anyone. I see. Yeah. Yeah. You're right. Okay. Thank you for that. So it is everyone. This is how things get done. Appreciate it. Any other comment? Yes.
I appreciated how you delineated on the self-restraint. So let's see, brahmachari sannyas. You didn't mention about any bhagavatas, but you referred to it at one point where you said, so a household is that regulated sex life.
Yeah.
Religious. And the one liner you gave the bhagavatas, you said after household life, ultimately one can be separated.
Yeah.
So it's a small little point, but it's actually important because the separated would be synonymous with Jaga. Whereas Srila Prabhupada does say in Vedic culture, the separation isn't the main point or important point because not everybody's going to take sannyasa.
Yeah.
Everyone should be detached.
Yes.
So if the husband and wife remain together, it is also understood to be one process of detachment is there.
Yes. And oftentimes we see like some great examples like Vaisheshika Prabhu, Dhruva Maharaj, preaching, is that there's a real partnership there in preaching, and it becomes very glorious. That and as an example, dynamic. I mean, Prabhupada was overjoyed when the three couples went to London, famously, and opened up London. I mean, it was. The sannyasi couldn't do it. In other words, the Bhaktisiddhanta sended sannyasis, but they weren't, because they for whatever reason. But the perseverance, the sacrifice was incredible. They were doing as much austerity as anybody in the movement at that time, except Prabhupada. So, there've been so many wonderful couples, and Lord Chaitanya, most of his disciples, most of his associates there were householders. Yeah.
What happens to it? Prabhupada didn't appreciate where, okay, now you just left her out in the cold and what the movement has to take care of it. No, it's your responsibility. You took responsibility, now you have to see she's set up.
Yeah.
And if you don't, then you neglected that and what makes it
and that'll affect. That's one of the unfortunate qualities of the Kali Yuga, especially Western Kali Yuga, where you don't have so many of these extended families, and it was always yes, and the old elder son takes care of it. You may not have an elder son, or if you have an elder son, he may not be willing. That's unfortunately, that's the case many times. The part of the problem is that everyone scatters. I remember my brother. He got married a little late. He had two wonderful sons. And he was overjoyed, but he was a little older. And then one of them turned out to be a hotshot programmer and just left New York, stayed, and went to California, and is now over there. And the other one's back in Boston. It's like, it just you have to adjust. You have to survive in Krishna consciousness. And so the caring elders, they sometimes get to that point of anaprastha and stay at that point. You can see, that can also. The real criterion is the state of consciousness, how you can develop detachment and still stay enthused in devotional service and preaching. It can be an advantage actually in some cases for preaching. So many adjustments have to be made because you have to make adjustments for the age and the things that are going on. But the principle has to be there. The detachment has to be there somehow or other. You have to achieve it. And because attachment to Krishna must result in detachment from Maya. You can't go both ways at once. Any other comments?
That was nice how you informed us that Muni comes from Om.
Yes.
Because generally we say the definition of Muni is thoughtful.
You can agitate the mind in various ways. I think Prabhupada says, thoughtful. But that's, I've heard Prabhupada mention that also, long ago.
And one last question. When you gave the definition of sublimate, you put the Krishna conscious slant on it. What would the dictionary say sublimate is?
It's more of a technical, psychological term. If you give me about 15 seconds, I'll look it up and give it to you. There are advantages and disadvantages to having this, but this is one of the advantages. I remember when I read it, and I was thinking, well, it's not exactly what we have in mind, but the idea is there. Sublimate, to express a desire or feeling by changing it into a form that is socially acceptable.